We next present a conversation with Dr. Safaya, the director of the Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Medical Sciences. In conversation with him is Professor G. Venkataraman.
Sai Ram, Dr. Safaya, welcome to the studios of Radio Sai. Of course, we all know you very well, so maybe there is no real introduction necessary. But one thing we do not know, most people do not know, I for example do not know, is what brought you to Swami? Different people have different experiences that bring them to Swami. What brought you to Swami?
What brought me to Swami was purely because of my sojourn in the spiritual aspect of life, and I wanted to get an answer to two straight questions. Number one, is there God and divinity? And if there is, how to find it, how to get? Because if the answers are yes in both, then the rest of the working is immaterial, or the context changes completely.
So these questions were with you always?
Always. During my, since my childhood, I should say.
See. What were you doing to find answers?
And I tried to meet large number of people, saints, spiritual people, purely religious people, and not only Hindus, but of all religions. And the only thing that clicked with me was Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. So I read a book.
Oh, I see.
I read the book, The Man of Miracles.
Oh, Marfet's book.
Marfet's book. And believe me, this story, small story, is that this book was in Hindi, and I do not know much of Hindi myself. So I had to practically read it like a schoolboy. And
you were not aware that the book was originally published in English?
I was not at that time. It was given by a friend to me. And he said, you give it to your wife, she will read it out for you, and you can finish it in a week or so, and return it. Then when I started reading it, it was in the morning, breakfast time, I started reading it. And I forgot completely where I was and what I was reading and what my chores completely. I had to go to the hospital, and I was teaching those days.
It was so gripping.
It was so gripping. It was so interesting. And not only that, but it just, I fell in love with Swami as I went on reading the book.
So your time had come.
My time had come. It just like a key and a lock. It opened up just like that. And by the time I finished the book, I knew I had found the person for whom I was waiting.
So you wanted to see him?
I wanted to see him.
And you came here?
So I started coming in bhajans and all that, and then I started coming here. And here, mind you, 1984, Bhagwan told me, I said, there is a general hospital here, why don't I work here? And for these few days, I have got enough time in between the darshans. So he said, no, time will come when I will tell you what to do.
1984?
84.
7 years before?
Yes. And he told me I will call a meeting of all the doctors of the world and we'll decide what is to be done. Wait for that time.
Oh, fantastic. What did you think of it when this was told to you?
It was my first interview also, and I just got a little confused, I must say, a little...
No wonder.
Little overfilled. I was brimming with joy and love and all sorts of feelings. Plus, I didn't understand. Later on, I was concentrating on this sentence, what is my role and what he has for me, and when will this meeting of doctors... I didn't have any concept that a hospital is going to come up.
Who had? Nobody had.
Nobody had. So then suddenly, one day while I was sitting in my hospital in Delhi, then I got a sudden telephone call that you must come at once to Whitefield And there is...
Which year was that?
That was in 1990.
90.
Early 90s.
Yes.
And Bhagwan has formed an international committee for establishment of a super specialty hospital at Prashantanilayam, and you are the chairman of that committee. So I was completely bowled over.
You had forgotten, but he remembered.
He remembered. And so I took the next plane and landed myself in Whitefield. Swami was in Whitefield. And there, Mr. Tigrit and somebody, I think Colonel Jogarao, met me at the airport, and I was driven straight to the ashram, and then the thing started. And there I met already present large number of doctors, Indian as well as overseas doctors. Good many names which were, with names I was familiar, I had not met them before. And that was the international committee.
So in 1991 you finally made the shift to this place when this hospital was
Yes.
So how was it coming from a big hospital in a big city to what was then still a village, and with a very different, to work in a very different kind of hospital?
Yeah, it was a great challenge in a way. Number one, to establish a hospital at a place which is 160 kilometers away from the main city, where everything is available, and here nothing was available. So you had to have a complete teamwork of people drawing up the lists and not missing anything, not even a needle, you see. So literally speaking, it took us some time to get adjusted in establishing a hospital in rural service. Even now, the hospital's next door neighbor is a thatched hut. So, and the basic amenities not being available for the people and for your own team. I remember we people who were engaged with planning and advising the engineers, we were all taking tea along with the laborers in a L&T canteen. So that was the state of affairs. And then gradually things started taking shape, and my people also got, my workers, my colleagues, they also got started used to the surroundings and to the idea. But one thing was there was a tremendous amount of dedication. Everybody, not only with the people who are associated with the hospital, who realized what a hospital is, but even with the basic worker, basic L&T worker who was carrying a crowbar or pieces of cement and bricks and all these people, laborers, construction days. Everybody, you see, all that went into it. The culture of the hospital developed, I think, right from the day the stone was laid down, because that is what is in
Needless
the hospital.
to say, you got inspiration from Swami, because otherwise it would have been very frustrating.
All, not only I, but everybody.
Did he come often?
He used to come very, sometimes twice a day.
Oh my God. And he's so meticulous, you'll go all round.
All round, and instructing and having and encouraging and inspiring, you see, because he was there and we thought we have to, next day morning we must show him some improvements, some achievements.
But you came through it all and you have sailed through 10 years.
Oh.
So how does it look now when you look back? How does it appear?
It is almost a miracle. See, I will tell you, Professor Venkataraman, it was, the hospital was to be inaugurated on 22nd.
Yes.
And so the 2 days before I came, I gave up, and I fell down on my bed at about 12 o'clock in the night. I said I cannot go any further, because the hospital will not be ready to be inaugurated and operations have to be done. The conditions are not sterile. Scientifically, we are not ready. So I have failed my master, I told my wife, and I started weeping in my bed, which I never did, at least in presence of my wife. I never have shed any tears. But she got alarmed, and then she encouraged me that if you believe Swami is a God, he will do something, don't worry. The divine Sankalpa has to be completed, and it shall get completed. And lo and behold, it did get complete. And so on 22nd, when the inauguration was to be there, right at 9 o'clock, he had predicted the knife should touch the skin. That is what exactly happened.
In a small way, I went through this experience. We had to start this radio service on 23rd November this year, and we got very little notice, and I never thought it was going to happen. But in spite of me, it did happen because he willed it. Yeah. And I couldn't believe that it had happened.
Divine Sankalpa.
It is just marvelous being swept along by that magic.
And also, one is the impact, physical impact of Swami.
Yes, that makes it.
And the image that a person has about Swami, that does the trick. But beyond that, I think, there is supernatural.
Yes, somehow
there is divine.
Somehow difficulty dissolve, and then they all hang together.
I will tell you, Government of India was not ready to relieve me.
Oh.
And there are documents to prove it. They were not. Ultimate, so much so that my ultimate relief order says, which has never been given to anybody, I think, that we, reluctantly, the president of the institute says, I reluctantly accept Dr. Safaya's request for premature retirement. The word reluctantly was significant because he tried his best. The president of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences is the health minister, union health minister. In spite of all the pressures on him from the president of India and the prime minister of India, he was not ready to relieve me. Ultimately, I went to Bhagwan. I remember it was my last day, and my director had told me that no further leaves, nothing of the sort, you can't go now. You have to stay in Delhi. So I told Bhagwan that all has failed. The president's words, the prime minister's word, everything has failed. My personal efforts have come to an end. Now, if you want me here, Bhagwan, then you have to intervene at the divine level.
And he did?
And Bhagwan said, don't worry. He smiled. And he said, you will be relieved on 1st of February. And you see, on 31st, 6 p.m.,
yes,
I was giving farewell to a person who was retiring that very day, and he was my deputy. And ultimately, on 1st, when I got relieved,
yes,
suddenly circumstances happened during the night.
Oh.
The health minister suddenly called me and he said, are you sure you want to go? I said, yes. My Guru's Adesh. Whatever you say is correct in its own way.
Yes.
But Guru and Shashya Parampada, you know.
Yes.
And I take him as my Guru. I have to get his Adesh fulfilled. And therefore, you have to let me go. He reluctantly picked up the pen and put these very words on that. I reluctantly accept Safaya's request. So this happened at 7 p.m. And I told the health minister my one request, kindly ring up the director of the institute not to relieve this gentleman because he is the
next. He used to take over from you.
You have to give 1 year extension to him. That is the only way I can be relieved.
What a drama.
And 7 p.m., this thing happened. 8 p.m., the doctor concerned, Dr. Verma, got the news from the director that he has been given 1 year's extension. Are you ready to accept it? He gladly accepted it.
I hope he didn't have to give back his farewell party.
Next day, morning I went, I handed over.
It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And this is the point I wanted to make in the whole story is the divine Sankalpa. When I left everything at his feet, that I have failed. The big suparishis have failed. The big interventions at worldly level have failed. Only you can do something. Then he did.
This is a fantastic story. I'm glad we got it out of you and it's now there for posterity. Now, getting down to some mundane things, can you tell us about the kind of treatment that is being given in the Puttaparthi hospital? It's called a super speciality hospital.
Yes,
what are the specialities that are being catered to?
Bhagwan had made this divine announcement that this hospital, he will make the hospital and it shall deal with the specialties of heart, brain, kidney, lungs and cancer. 5 things which he had. Out of which he started with the heart at Puttaparthi, and we started it. And then came the kidney, and then came the transplant programs of kidney, and then came the Department of Eye, Ophthalmology at Puttaparthi. So we right now practice the diagnosis and the treatment of diseases of heart, diseases of kidney,
and the eye,
and diseases of eye.
What kind
of high technology.
Oh, yes.
High technology treatment in these super specialties. Really high technology. And this can be delivered only with state-of-art equipment, both for diagnosis as well as for treatment. So the Puttaparthi hospital right now, even though now it is 10 years old, is one of the best hospitals in these specialties all over the country.
All over the country. And Puttaparthi is still a relatively remote place. As you said, your next door neighbor is a thatched hut. Even today. Okay, that brings me to a next question, which is what type of patients come here and from where do they come?
They're all middle class, lower middle class and poor people. They're all, most of them are villagers. Most of them are villagers. Genuinely villagers.
How do they hear about this hospital?
2 things are responsible. Number 1, the Sathya Sai organization, small groups that are all over the country.
Yes, they reach out to villages and the poor.
They reach out to the villages. They advise, they tell. That is awareness. The most of the countryside is aware now there is a hospital like that. Then there is question of people are so poor that even knowing this they cannot make the journey and all.
They don't have the money to travel.
They don't have money to travel. They don't have the will to travel. They don't have ultimately the determination that we must get our child or our patient treated. So when all these things are fulfilled, they land up over here. And you can see at the main gate early in the morning what is the type of population, you see. And nobody has to. You can go into the wards and see.
Yes, I have seen that.
These are all...
can you recall any one particular case of a really poor person who was desperate and who got...
Right, I very much remember even the first case.
Oh, first case. How did you happen to pick that first case, incidentally? Before there was a hospital, you had a case.
Yeah, we just opened the cath lab, cardiac catheterization lab 2 days earlier than the operations were done. And we opened our OPD 2 days before that. So before the inauguration, actually the patient examination had started 4 days.
How many patients came at that time?
At that time about, I think 24 patients came. And we had to just tell Anantapur people, and this person came from Anantapur. In fact, it was easier to announce it in Anantapur hospital rather than in any other village. So Anantapur, this gentleman came from Anantapur. And I think his name was Rajshekhar Reddy or something.
How old was he?
He was about 15-year or 16-year-old
young boy.
His father was a petty shopkeeper. And
he had a heart problem.
He had a heart problem. He had a hole in the heart, and that needed a major surgery. And they had given up this child hope that they had only one child. At that time, I don't know, they might have begotten more children during these last 10 years, but at that time, he was the only hope of the family, these husband and wife. And both were very much depressed and very poor indeed. And I remember we need to give him some encouragement by the way of food and money to make him stay for all these days till really he would get onto the bed and be operated. And so poor they were. And the story of all other patients is almost similar. I mean, this and then the operations, all the 4 operations that were done on that day, there was no complication in all the operations done that month.
In fact, I remember...
No mortality, no morbidity.
I remember that on 23rd, that is the day following the opening, Swami announcing in the Hillview Stadium that all operations were very successful.
Very successful. Bhagwan came on one day earlier.
Yes.
And as I told you, he used to come twice a day sometimes. He came in the evening, materialized vibhuti, gave to the proposed patients, and all of them did wonderfully well. And these patients, mind you, they are not coming from well-to-do families. They are poor families. Their immunity is low. Their nutrition is low. And they are hypoproteinemic. The protein content is low. Their capacity to repair their tissues, which are cut or repaired, is very is quite low.
So, as
but in spite of all that, they did very well.
So, as Dr. Bhatt often says, the surgeon cuts and God heals.
Heals.
Absolutely.
That is absolutely.
By the way, have you seen this first patient of yours subsequently?
Yes.
When was that?
That was on this birthday.
Oh, 10th anniversary, 22nd November.
Yes. He had heard that there is the 10th anniversary.
I see.
He came from Anantapur.
How does he look now?
He looks a tall gentleman.
I see.
Well built.
Young man of 25.
Helping hand. Yes.
Healthy and all that. So no problem.
Yes. I had also the good luck of Bhagwan coming to hospital on that day. We presented the patient to Bhagwan.
I see. What did Swami say?
Swami was very happy to see him. He materialized vibhuti and gave it to him.
Very
he
good.
Blessed him.
So, by the way, were these people devotees before?
No.
They were not.
No. They knew about Bhagwan,
Yes.
but they were not devotees in that sense. They were coming to Prashant Nilayam. They were just there and just making the two ends meet. That sort of family.
So, really speaking, the doors are open to anybody.
Anybody. Irrespective of caste, creed, color, country, any religion. There's no
Have you
absolute.
had any patients from far off places?
Oh yes, we have had patients from Sikkim, from Nepal, from end of...
Sikkim and Nepal?
Yes.
That's quite a far, long distance
Yes,
away.
long distance. And mind you, in our computerized system, we have a little edge to these. We just give some more additional points to them, that they are coming from far off distances, and particularly a foreign country like Nepal. And we have patients had from Bhutan. We had patients even from Malaysia. We had patients from Sri Lanka. We had patients for consultation even from Pakistan.
Pakistan? Oh, that's very interesting. West Pakistan?
Yes. What is now Pakistan?
So, word about Swami's hospital has reached even Pakistan?
Oh, even
Pakistan.
Oh,
wonderful. Okay, now I want to ask you something else. We have many of our old students working in this hospital, in fact also in Bangalore. As an institute man, I would like to know what you feel about them.
Oh, I feel very proud of these people.
So do I.
And as my employees, because they are highly motivated group. You see, Bhagwan has, by establishing a hospital, merely not adding to the number of surgeries in the human population that is suffering from heart disease, but also created certain experiments for the mankind to see and look into and get experience out of that. One of the experiments is implementation of highly motivated group of young men into the technical field for obtaining results. These people are not only good in their own, subjects from the university, but they have picked up medical sciences and learned, and aptitude development, and also understanding. And with the result that right now, the students, so-called Swami students, we refer to them, they work as guides to the younger medical staff.
No, I see.
And even middle cadre medical staff. When they are in difficulty, they will ask them, and they guide them.
This motivation, would you say it springs basically from a deep love for Swami?
It springs from love, respect, and dedication.
Dedication comes from that.
They have practically very few interests besides Swami in their life. So they are not diverted. They have even forgotten to marry. Most of them.
They are married to their work, I suppose.
Married to their work.
And they express their love for Swami by dedication to work and giving love to the patients.
Yes. You will find very few of them standing in the bhajans or in the veranda and doing all sorts of apparent show of dedication. But on the other hand, you will find them highly dedicated to look after the machines that they are in charge, look after the systems they are in charge, and look after the work they are supposed to do towards the patients.
So you would give them extra marks for motivation and dedication?
Absolutely. This is a group that needs to be created in every good institution, scientific institution. Every good scientific institution, and hospital is one of those things, and that deals with life and death. And this group is responsible for, the other day I will tell you, 1 year back, the top Philips team visited our cardiac catheterization lab.
Yes, and you have a Philips machine there.
Philips cardiac catheterization, we have 2 labs.
Yes, I've seen that.
And when they saw the lab, they were astonished. They say, is this lab 10-year-old? I don't believe it. So it is there. And it is there today, now running in 11th year. This lab is one of the best cath labs still in the country.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, this brings me to the question, how does Swami guide and support you? Obviously he does, but can you give us some hints about how he does it?
Well, his methods are not...
very subtle, I know.
So he is giving ideas, and you have to be very attentive to him. He's the way he talks to you, and what he talks to you, his gestures, he's not talking to you, all this is a language. All these are lessons in administration, whether you are taking the right decision and wrong decision. And you get the, sort of clue as to what is to be done.
So you have to be tuned to him, really.
You have to be tuned. And then comes the ultimate thing. When you are helpless, as I told you, and then you have to surrender yourself. And when you tell Bhagwan your problem, then he has a solution ready. That is, and I have perfect, whenever you go to him with a problem, he says, I know.
Yes,
and I have a perfect proof that he knows it already.
Yes.
He was just waiting for me to say, and he has the solution ready.
Allow me to narrate an experience of mine. When I became Vice Chancellor, one day Swami asked me some question, and I was naive and said, Swami, you know everything. And he said, yes, I know, but I want to know whether you know. I know even that, but I want you to know whether you know or not. So that shut me up, and thereafter I became attentive to details.
That is, but you have to go through the motions. You have to tell him, and you have to tell him about any trends that you observe. You have to tell him anything wrong that is there, and obtain, not only that, you have to obtain corrective solutions from him. That is the thing.
So he guides, supports, and also inspires.
Yes, I have seen nobody, I have met no teacher in my lifetime who has taught me as much as he has taught. I have been administering All India Institute of Medical Sciences Hospital for the 18 years. country's biggest hospital,
Yes.
Southeast Asia's biggest hospital.
Yes.
And we have 35 medical specialties there. And I had to practically unlearn most of what I had learned there.
Why was that?
Because the attitudes. Here the God in this temple of healing is the patient.
Oh, patient is...
Patient is the highest pedestal. Patient is at the highest. So whatever you do, whatever you think, whatever you plan for is for the benefit of the patient, which is theoretically very true in all other hospitals. But maybe also money, maybe also personal ego, maybe for anything else also. But in this hospital, there's nothing else. Money is not involved, so therefore personal egos are not involved. So there is no self-aggrandizement and things like that.
So at the end of the day, you feel very happy, don't you?
We feel very happy. All my workers.
You talked about money. One question that people always want to ask is, how does the hospital get money when it doesn't charge any, fees from the patient?
That is... Swami gives the money in the way that there is a Sathya Sai Medical Trust, to which people have donated money.
Yes.
A part of this money goes into the corpus fund, and that interest of that corpus fund keeps the hospitals going.
So, and
plus there are some donors also who are ready to offer the equipment or the money for particular equipment.
So basically it is love that sustains the hospital.
Love.
It only gets translated
whether it takes
to
the
currency,
form of money or form of...
But it is love, it comes as service, it comes as equipment, it comes as something else, so many things. Because you do have a lot of people coming and serving there in various capacities.
Oh yes, that is another experiment which Swami has shown. That is the community involvement. People are talking about community involvement in hospital ever since I became a medical student. But I have never seen it practically happen until I joined this hospital. And right now in Puttaparthi hospital, there are 100 people coming, volunteers from different states at different times, and 50 men, 50 women.
You are referring to Sevadals.
Sevadals, what is called Sevadal. And they are working night and day for the patients, whatever, irrespective of what they are in their normal stations in their life.
Yeah, I know. I once met a professor from Indore. I had met him there. And he was pushing a wheelchair, and in that wheelchair was sitting a poor villager, a cobbler or something like that. It's
I have met large... Right now, if you go there, you will see senior army officers, senior professors, as you say, even doctors coming in Sevadal.
Oh, doctors coming in Sevadal.
Doctors coming in Sevadal and not sitting in the OPD and examining the patients, but pushing the trolleys.
Yes.
And
sweeping the floor.
Cleaning the glass panes.
Fantastic. One last question. You have been very kind to spare so much of your time, but this is a question that needs to be asked, especially because so many people are trying to build similar hospitals elsewhere, both governments and individuals. The question is, do you think these two hospitals can be replicated?
Replicated? It is...
Unless,
frankly, I will tell you, if Swami does it, yes, he can. Basically, I think Bhagwan's intention of creating these two hospitals is to have a model before everybody.
That is the reason I asked.
The government and other organizations to see a hospital. And the awareness which this hospital, particularly Puttaparthi Hospital, has spread all over the world, that a high-tech, completely free hospital is functioning in India and less developed country, and has been working successfully for the last 10 years.
So the love and dedication can work miracles. That is the main message of this hospital.
That is the main
And
message.
you don't have to think that it is not affordable or anything.
No, the question of money is secondary. That's what I have come to know now, realize. It is if you have the will and you have the divine help.
Oh, divine help will come if you...
Out of love and dedication.
If you are selfless, automatically. There is no question. So love, selfless love and total dedication will surely make the hospital work.
This is a miracle of love.
So that is the real lesson we must
miracle of love in the process and miracle of love in the results also. The results of treatment of the patients is also a miracle of love.
And I suppose the patients also learn what love is.
Oh yes, every patient goes with a picture of Swami. And I have to sometimes be a little rude to them because they insist on pasting Swami's picture on the wall besides their bed.
Place will be flooded with pictures.
But this is what...
They can paste it on their heart.
They take those pictures. They were not devotees. And they now know...
Someone cares.
That's very And Swami does take time off to visit the hospital and definitely visits the ward 1 or 2 and critically ill patients. He just blesses them.
Yes, I have seen that too. So thank you very much, Dr. Safaya. It has been wonderful talking to you. And I am sure our listeners will derive great joy and pleasure listening to you over the air, because you have told us so many things about the hospital which we did not know. I am one of them. I have been here for 10 years. And I've been going past the hospital so many times. I've gone there also. But I didn't know many of the things that you revealed.
I feel, I should say, very, very happy of having spoken about this blossoming of the love experiment, which the significance of which is not realized at this point of time in the medical annals. Though the story about the Puttaparthi Hospital has been published by WHO in its bulletin, which is supplied all over the world in 40 languages of the world. They know about it, but this is... A time is going to come when people are going to come and examine and take lessons from this experiment, from this blossoming of love.
Let's hope that day is not far off and both of us will have the pleasure of seeing it happen before our eyes. Thank you so much. Sai Ram.